Check to see if live stream's working again. Alright,
Yeah, it looks like it.
we got picture. Oop, crap. Man, I have made that mistake so many times, it's not even funny now. So, welcome. This is our first episode of the Black Vault, our Black Library show. Today we're going to be talking a lot about Blood Angels. Quick announcement beforehand, we have our giveaway. Oh wait, well, first off, let's make a huge disclaimer that there's going to be spoilers in this. If you guys are planning to read either or of these, this is you might want to put off watching this live show. But yep, we also need to announce the winner of our giveaway, who I decided through very complex random generator. But the winner is Tumblr user Core the Peanut Bear. Yeah, Core the Peanut Bear. So yep, I will be messaging you on Tumblr saying that you won, and we will discuss how to get these things to you. And I am possibly going to delay that a very long time because I would actually like to read these, because I started reading these on my break, and I'm just kind of like, I don't want to give these up. So
Son of God Kane, well done. Apparently, congratulations.
he wishes it was him. But yeah. So spoilers. Seb, do you wanna take it from here?
Well, yeah, we're going to try and avoid too many spoilers. There might be a few things in the first book, particularly, but we're looking at the first two books of the Blood Angels saga by James Swallow. So I'll give you a brief intro about James Swallow, and then we will hand over to Brett, who will introduce us to the Blood Angels. So James Swallow, he's one of the Black Library's British authors and script writers. He's been BAFTA nominated and is New York Times bestseller indeed. He's done lots of tie-ins as well as short stories and audio dramas for video games and lots of sci-fi stuff, including his own Western steampunk series, The Sundowners, and starting his first Black Library book, which was Deus and Carmine. He's also since then done some Sisters of Battle and some Horus Heresy stuff, including Garrow books and audio dramas. Yeah, so most of it's great, some of it's interesting, and yeah, take us away with the Blood Angels, Brett.
Alright, the Blood Angels are Legion 9 of the Legiones Astartes, created by the Emperor for the sake of unifying mankind in the grand enterprise of the Great Crusade. Their Primarch was the winged angel Sanguinius. He came to fall upon the desolate planet of Baal, where he was discovered by human tribesmen, and from there grew with them, turned to lead them, discovered by the Emperor, handed control of the Blood Angels, and thus continued the Great Crusade. A few things about the Blood Angels. As their name denotes, blood is a very, very large part of their fluff, of their culture. The actual tribe Sanguinius was discovered by was referred to as the people of the blood, or just simply the blood, which when Sanguinius was given control of his legion, that was when they were bestowed with the name the Blood Angels. Yeah, that's pretty much the Blood Angels there without revealing everything else.
Yeah, we could talk for days.
We could talk for days.
So yeah, we'll get cracking with the first book, which is Deus and Carmine from 2004. I'm going to give us a brief synopsis and we will talk about it. Unfortunately, we're going to be pulling it apart quite a lot, but things get better, so it's all right. So basically, Deus and Carmine follows the exploits of the Blood Angel Raphan, as he and his brethren defend the Imperial grave world of Cybele, or Cybele, against the perfidious word bearers. When all seems lost, the Bellis, a group of Blood Angels battle barge, comes to reinforce them, bringing along Raphan's bloodkin brother, Archeo, and a rather dodgy-looking Inquisitor. Word bearers take a hike, take over an Imperial world, and the Blood Angels came along to kick their asses and reclaim it in the name of the Imperium. Along the way, strange things seem to be happening with Archeo, which we might look into a bit more when we talk about the next book. So yeah, that's kind of what happens in the book. But it's really, what would you say, Ray? It's not the best book from the Black Library so far.
Yeah, in terms of its in terms of its central plot line, its characters, and everything else, it's it has everything it needs, but it was not executed particularly well. Um, yeah, just the I think the biggest problem we found was, for one, the Space Marines, the Blood Angels, were felt very generic, and the story itself had a lot of had a lot of holes.
Yeah. Because we were saying it could kind of be any legion. That's the tricky thing with the Blood Angels, but we'll come back to that a bit more
Yeah.
later. But even the main character, Raven, he's not got a character really, has he? That's the
Yeah,
that's the
he
tricky
doesn't.
thing.
He really doesn't develop much of a character until even when things start to happen with Archeo. His character doesn't really develop until Archeo's transformation, and he's all like, "Oh crap!" Then he develops something akin to a personality, but even then, it's basic and bare bones.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of action in this first book. Possibly too much action. I've seen people review it and say it's rather cinematic and exciting, but for me, I think he's just trying to have too much happening, and he doesn't really have a handle on anything. Like some of the Dan Abnett and Graham McNeil stuff, you're almost dodging bolter shells. It's not quite the case here.
Really, I feel Swallow's biggest problem is his format. His just his paragraphs are so word heavy that reading it is kind of cumbersome. And when you have as much action as there is in this book, you need a bit more fluidity. You need more speed. You need to be able to express, he dodged a bolt shell, commando rolled, hacked a word bearer's leg off, punched another one in the face, brought his bolter up, blasted another one, and you need to be able to clear that in like 2 sentences. And for him, it takes him about 3 or 4.
And you want those few sentences to kind of make your heart skip a bit faster, and you want to be involved in that action.
Exactly. You need it to reach down, grab you, and pull you with it. Whereas you feel like you're holding onto the back of a car, like stumbling.
Yeah, dragged a long way behind a rhino, possibly.
Hmm.
Because that's the thing, he's a great storyteller. He really is, and the overarching sort of stuff for this whole Blood Angel saga and some of the stuff that comes to fruition when we look at the next book is there's some really interesting stuff there. But he's finding himself, I think, in the Black Library in this first book. So it's 2004, so it's a while ago now. But he's telling stuff rather than showing it. And there are these clumsy words. Like, he keeps saying things like man shape and bullet shape and skull shape. It's just, go into a bit more detail,
Hmm.
please. We touched upon, like, yeah, Inquisitor Steele, who I don't feel I'm really giving any spoilers away, because the moment he lands, your alarm bells are ringing. He's clearly a dodgy chap. And maybe one of the only really interesting things that comes from it, him and his relationship that is exposed with War Master Garand. There's also the fact that we do get a glimpse behind the Chaos Space Marines' eyes, the word bearers. This could be rather interesting, but unfortunately, Iskavan the Hated, the Dark Apostle, is possibly the most blundering and simply angry and less fleshed out Chaos character ever, to be honest.
Yeah, Iskavan the Hated, who Garand refers to as Iskavan the Mocked, I believe he said, is just it. When you first meet him, he's very pompous and full of himself, which you would somewhat expect from a Chaos Lord, but amongst the Word Bearers, where they're much more religious in aspect, there's a huge disconnect from the Word Bearers we all know, and of course, we don't want to be influenced between how the Word Bearers are presented by other writers, but the basic knowledge is that the Word Bearers are the, priests of chaos, and there was nothing priestly about Iskavan, and his little sidekick, I think his name was Tancred,
Yeah.
was just I have no idea, making music out of his screams was just strange. And even then, with they the cruelty and morbid brutality of the word bearers was over embellished, whereas the whole what made them word bearers was just not there.
They were just Chaos Space Marines.
Exactly, they were just generic Chaos Space Marines. And then later on, after after the word bearers took the foot to the face at Shenlong and they were marching around in the sewers, and Iskavan was just really all pissy and weepy. It was like, this is not a word bearer to me. This completely failed.
Well, as a Dark Apostle and a word
Mhm.
bearer, compare him to oh, how come I've forgotten his name? The main guy in the Heresy,
Ah, Erebus, maybe.
Erebus. Yeah, compare him to Erebus, and he just does not
And
stand
if
up.
and if anyone's read Anthony Reynolds, I think it's Anthony Reynolds. If anyone's ever read his Word Bearers trilogy, you get a real feel for the monastic chaos nature of the Word Bearers, and whereas Iskavan and his host were just, the poorly forgotten, forsaken stepchildren of the Word Bearers, really.
This is one of the things we were discussing because I wasn't quite as aware as the structure of the traitor legions as you were, but you were saying the word bearers pretty much they are a legion almost as they were, apart from now Perfidious. But you don't see that in this book. You don't see them as an organized force.
Hmm. And that's
Their
the
only
thing.
trait is they don't retreat, and then they do.
Yeah, like before the heresy, the word bearers were kind of disjointed and not sure where they were. After the heresy, they really came into themselves, and their discipline and their monastic nature really found its groove. And these word bearers were really not word bearers.
I'm sorry to start on such a bit of a downer. And I think things do pick up. There are some interesting things about this book. Yeah, as we said, Garand, the War Master of this force, makes a very brief appearance, which is quite a nice, interesting scene to be honest, compared to some of the others. But weren't you saying this book was originally they were going to both Deus and Carmine, Deus Sanguinius were going to be one product?
Yes, I had read. I think it's in the introduction to the first Omnibook. That that he submitted his stuff to Black Library, and they said, "My God, this is great. We wanna publish this, but can you like chop it in two? Because as one book, this is bloody massive. It's gonna be bigger than a Bible."
Yeah, because it's 2004 for Deus and Carmine, 2005 for Deus Sanguinius.
Hmm.
It, it's an interesting one. I would it'd be interesting to see them together as they are in the Omnibook. To be fair, but
Yeah,
Deus Sanguinius definitely benefits from that year separation.
yeah. It really does.
Is there anything you feel we've particularly missed or want to say about Deus and Carmine before you bring us into Deus Sanguinius?
Well, I feel we should probably spend a little bit more time on the character of Archeo and his interaction with Steel. I believe we had discussed earlier how there's a huge, huge disconnect on the whole, Steel and his bonhomie with the Blood Angels, and
Yes, it's all a bit very weird fluff wise. So yeah, we look at Archeo and the Bellis and their mission.
I was
So
doing a I was doing a bit of research. Sorry to cut you off. I
yeah,
was
right.
doing a bit of research, and in one of the short stories that are found in the Omnibook is the way Steel supposedly gets the trust of the Blood Angels is he saves the life of Captain Tycho in some godforsaken battle that was actually a failed experiment of Steel's. And so if anyone had read, so if we had known of that short story, um, ahead of time, we probably could have read it first, and it would have helped explain Steel. But regardless, just for the fact that he had, been at the right place at the right time to save a Space Marine captain, that he somehow was leader of the expedition to recover the Spear of Telesto, and even then, a big problem is, why did it take them 10,000 years to reclaim the Spear of Telesto? I mean, that's a an artifact of the Primarch. I know the Night Lords, when Moshen killed the Night Hunter and took a bunch of his shit, almost the whole Legion took off after her, purely for the sake of getting their shit back, not out of vengeance. But whereas the Blood Angels took 10,000 years to get the spear back, it was like, that's not very Space Marine of you.
We're kind of saying that we're trying to estimate how many people that we think might have been on the Bellis, and we're saying that like up to a company being led by an Inquisitor is crazy after the Primarch Spear, and 10,000 years to take down some orcs, yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, and that was the other thing was, we were being generous in saying that the Bellis had about a company aboard, because I don't think it did, but it's never really explained how much, how many Blood Angels were aboard the Bellis. But yeah,
It becomes a bit more important later, but that's for the next episode.
Mm.
So so Archeo presented with the spear seems to take upon the mantle of Sanguinius himself, which is interesting.
yeah. There's this. What happens is, Archeo has a couple of flashes of brilliance, which were genuine. Which were genuine things. Hey, we're in this situation. I have this idea. Maybe this could work, and it turns out to work. And then, a couple more flashes of brilliance later, and then next thing you know, he touches the Spear of Telesto, and bam, Sanguinius reborn. Or so everyone thinks.
So this is what we were saying. If this happened to a different legion, say the Dark Angels, because they recover some sword of the Lion, and he becomes the Lion reborn, the Dark Angels would purge everything.
Yeah, there would have been
for a moment.
There would have been none of that. There would have been a little bit of a shit to put down there.
Yeah. So the whole trying to take down the Blood Angels is a very interesting thing for Garand and the Word Bearers to be trying to do. But the way they go about it does seem a little bit counterintuitive to the actual fluff and nature of the Blood Angels, who just seem to be quite gullible, to be honest.
Yeah, that was nothing. Was how everything started happening, and I was like, and Rafen is the only, like, there was Rafen, he was like, nah, I don't buy this, and then there was I think Sergeant Chorus was like, what's going on, and then Chorus ended up getting black raged, and that was the end of that.
But yeah, so it's an interesting prospect. I myself would probably give it 3 out of 5, but I think I'm being really generous. It's the first book I managed to read in over a year with my condition and stuff, so it was a bit special for me. But other than that, it sets up the rest.
In terms of action, I'd give it a 3 out of 5, because there is plenty of fighting. There is plenty of, combat scenes and whatnot, but in terms of story and writing, I'd have to give it a 2.
Yeah. And in terms of personality, 1.
In terms of characters having personality, 1, yes.
Yeah, this is generic Space Marines doing what only the Blood Angels can. Yeah, so would you say we've covered that fairly well?
I'd say we have.
Yeah. Yeah, and please don't be put off. It's definitely worth a look, and it does start with the rest of the books. So yeah.
Yeah, especially the Blood Angel books get a lot better as they go on, and you can't read them without reading Deus and Carmine. And as for its flaws, Deus and Carmine has a lot of really good, exciting parts, and a lot of good ideas and whatnot. It's worth it.
Yeah, it's a good first go, but it's not quite the same as Dan Abnett's Gaunt's Ghost's first go.
Mm.
Let's be fair. So, do you want to lead us into Deus Sanguinius?
Yes, Deus Sanguinius is the second half of this great ordeal. At the end of Deus and Carmine, Rafin was about to be killed by Iskavan. Archeo came in and rescued him and all this other crazy stuff. And Rafin had no choice but to swear his oath to Archeo along with the rest of the Sibylle and Bellis Marines. And the plot unfolds. Archeo Steel starts filling Archeo's head with these delusions of grandeur, and Archeo basically starts to see himself truly as the Sanguinius Reborn. He sets up from the beleaguered population of Shenlong. He starts setting up this blood crusade made up of all these conscripts from the ragged population, just people who basically fight gladiator style, and those who Archeo just chooses become part of this blood legion. And really was one of the first things I saw that made it obvious to me that this was no Sanguinius Reborn. This was a very chaos style thing to do, because whenever you see the word bearers using human beings in battle, they're always ragged. They're always, they grab them, they bring with them whatever they can, they plop them on a ship, dump them on a battlefield, and that appears to be exactly what Archeo is planning to do. And because he thinks that these ragged people who've already been mauled by the word bearers are gonna form this great blood crusade. They're gonna scour the Maelstrom, scour the Eye of Terror, and all this other madness. And moving on, we just Rafin starts to take matters into his own hands. Things really, he manages to get out a signal to Ball, and things get out of hand when a lesser librarian shows up with a bunch of, Sanguinary Guard, and Steel manages to manipulate his mind to basically see Archeo as this, falsehood usurper of the leadership of the Blood Angels, and the librarian's killed, his guards are killed, the battle barge or the strike cruiser they came on is destroyed, and that's really the turning point of everything. That's where everything just takes a spill for the worst. And in all of that, I feel that James Swallow did a lot better in his story, making a lot more sense, because whereas in Deus and Carmine, there were a lot of massive holes in the plot line where it was like, okay, this does not jive with this. This, like, the whole Inquisitor leading Space Marines thing, this isn't the Death Watch. This doesn't work. Whereas in Deus Sanguinius, everything is much more logical. It's more reasonable. Things work a lot better. He's a little bit less cumbersome in his writing. Things are more exciting while still being, easy to read and whatnot.
It brings us up to the full-on confrontation, doesn't it? After the taking out the librarian and the spaceships, you actually lead to full-on schism within the Blood Angels, which is crazy. Where we have,
what ends up happening is we have Archeo and Steel and Sashael with their, they're like a company's worth, I'd say, of warriors, and the little, blood crusade of 1,000 raggedy haggarters. And none other than Mephiston, the Lord of Death, shows up with another company of Blood Angels to to speak with Archeo, but of course by now Archeo's already got it in his head that everyone's out to get him. He should be the rightful leader of the Blood Angels, and there's only one way this is gonna go down. And Steele's
right?
Steele's plot is just starting to go right, and Rafen pops in and fucks up the whole thing.
Brother on brother, fratricide in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a lot better than the last one. Like, I really think it's good that there is that year between them. It's weird. Like, where's the second act? There's a lot less seems to happen. There's the scope of it. I think he definitely covers it much better, having the fact that. So yeah, you're on Shenlong. Rafen's not happy about stuff. He's praying to the Emperor and to Sanguinius. Arceus setting everything up, and it all kicks off and they go away. And then you're ready for the big battle when it's all done. So yeah, a lot more detail given to the character and each part that's happening. And also we get to see a bit of Mephiston and Dante and a bit of Bar, which is nice. Really grounds it in the 40k universe much more than in the first one.
Yeah, because I remember a problem we had really with the whole series is that there's not much of a scope of where it all falls in the timeline. About the only thing we can discern is that it happens before the 13th Black Crusade. That's really all we can tell. Because I'm not sure if it was Garand or Steele, or maybe Steele in communion with Malphalax, was the Blood Angel was the goal was for the Blood Angels to take part in the 13th Black Crusade under fighting on the side of the traitors.
Yeah, because if anything we can place it with, because in the next book the Lamenters are nowhere to be seen, so that kind of dates it a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think he has a lot more of a character in this one, which is nice. Rafen is actually his own man, his own space marine, which is good.
I think what part of that may have been is that in the beginning he might not really have established himself as a character, whereas as things went on, his character actually developed.
Yeah, it blossoms, and you're actually with him. Because the problem with Deus and Carmine is you just don't really care about what's happening. Even if you're an avid Blood Angels fan or an avid Wordbearers fan, there's not really anything for you to get excited about.
Mm-hmm.
But you're kind of with Rafen. You're with him. You want him to get to Sabian. You want this all to come out.
Yeah.
I also think with the kickoff with the Librarian at the beginning, you're waiting a good long time for some action, and when it comes with a much bigger punch, but smaller scale than in the last one. It's much more immediate. Yeah. Also, there's some great detail about Mephiston and Callisterius. There's some glimpses about his how he actually became Mephiston, which is really nice. And even a good look at Dante's Arboretum on Bar, which is incredible. The fact that he's got this wonderful contemplative garden on this arid desert planet, which is, it really feels like it exists in the world now, rather than being a bunch of space marines on a planet doing something that no one cares about. And anything else you particularly want to bring up from Deus Sanguinius?
I don't want to totally give away all the endings, so that's really pretty much it. I mean, the ending's pretty obvious, There's a final confrontation between Rafen and Archeo. All things are tied up, and
yeah, Chaos wins. They kill the Emperor, destroy the Blood Angel.
Yeah,
it goes as you might imagine it would go.
Yeah.
So yeah, right. So that ends the beginning of the first two books of the Blood Angel saga. We're going to be going on to Red Fury and Black Tide in the next episode, in 4 weeks' time. And for this episode, we're also looking at the audio drama Heart of Rage, which is again by James Swallow, and again follows the Blood Angels. So yeah, basically we follow a librarian and his squad, including his sergeant, as they undertake some work for a Mechanicum Majos, investigating a seemingly dormant Tyranid hive ship, which kind of turns into a bit of a thriller slash murder mystery on board a Tyranid space hulk.
The whole idea was pretty interesting. Like the whole idea of the Mechanicum wants this, seemingly dead Tyranid hive ship for the sake of research, which is something the Magus Biologists of the Mechanicum absolutely would do, and it's completely understandable. The Blood Angels at first are like, "Oh my God, is that what I think it is? Destroy it!" And
it must be killed.
And the Majos is like, "No, we must learn from this." And
learn we do.
And they board it, and they're all like, the decking is alive. There are holes and pipes and organs all around us. Creepy. And and a lot of pretty much what you'd expect, what you'd expect from a Tyranid hive ship. And as expected, the hive ship isn't dead. The hive ship itself is kind of dead. The occupants of it are not quite so dead. And
what they discover is an interesting symbiotic relationship that I don't think I want to spoil too much, but there's some very interesting viewpoints and of different way of looking at the Imperium.
You effectively see the Imperium from the point of view of the Tyranid hive mind, spoken through the words, spoken, through a human or a Mechanicum bioslave, and it kind of makes you take it. Like, I mean, everyone kind of knows that the Imperium's kind of really shitty, but when you see it from the point of view of an alien, you're just like, wow, man, we really suck.
We were talking about it. The Tyranids are very natural. The whole process, the whole, converting biomatter and keeping yourself going, and the way they're all linked, the whole hive mind thing is quite a nice, quite a nice thing when you get away from the biovores and the lictors and things.
Mm-hmm.
And it also echoes some of the things that Angron says in Betrayer, like saying how, just poking holes in the Imperium and saying that they're the disease, not everything they're trying to wipe out.
Mm-hmm.
You also said again, like, they're Space Marines.
They're Space Marines. There's nothing much that really makes them Blood Angels. I mean, you could have easily done the exact same story with the Ultramarines or the Imperial Fists, really. You could have... There was nothing about them that made them Blood Angels except for an attempt at using the Black Rage as a sort of focal point for the interaction between the Space Marines, between each other, and between the Tyranid creature. But even then, it's like... Even then, it just doesn't quite work. Like I said, they easily could have made it Ultramarines or some other chapter and just said, and at the end, he descended into a Berserk Fury, which is not at all uncommon for Space Marines.
Yeah, if it was Space Wolves, he might have gone Wolf, and if it was Raven Guard, he might have gone Albino. But it's a very different portrayal of the Black Rage or Red Thirst, which I don't know if I like it more or take umbrage with the fact that it's so different.
Yeah.
Admittedly, it's coming from the Tyranid psychic powers, so like it would be different. But there's none of this seeing your brothers. There was none of this seeing through Sanguinius' eyes.
Yeah, that's been a big part of the Black Rage in every incarnation I've seen, is that the Blood Angel succumbing to the Black Rage believes himself to be, Sanguinius at the Battle of Terra, or at the in the final battle with Horus, where just the overbearing psychic imprint of his Primarch on his blood is merging with his own personality, and yeah, and whereas this one, he just kind of looked like he, the librarian at the end just let himself flip the almighty fuck out. Pretty much was what that was.
Yeah, well, which is good to do if you're prepared for it.
Yeah.
I think the writing's much better. The rather more esoteric and the dream-like sequence that opens this audio drama, I personally think it's written really well.
Yeah,
It's
from
from 2009, so we're talking 5 years after Deus and Carmine.
Yeah, in terms of the writing was fantastic. The writing was great. I mean, it was very crisp, very clear. It wasn't cumbersome. It wasn't like you were trying to tell me a story and instead hitting me in the head with the book. It was actually like you wrote things on a page, handed them to me, and I was like, "Oh, hey man, it's great." But yeah, but like I said,
It's not
the only real, I don't want to say failure, but the only real failed part was the Space Marines being Blood Angels.
Yeah, maybe there could be something more. It could have worked better with another one, because all you need is a librarian. That's the only important factor really in this book, is the fact that there's a librarian in it. So it could have been any chapter. I would like to talk a little bit about the production, the sound effects and the music and everything. I think it's put together really well. It's Toby Longworth reading and doing the voices, and anyone that's seen my blog will know that I am a massive Toby Longworth fangirl. For me, he's the voice of Warhammer 40k. He just, when I heard Raven's Flight and he was doing Commander Bran, for me that was just what a Space Marine sounds like. So I really enjoyed that, and yeah, he narrates it very well.
Mm.
It's a fairly solid 4 out of 5 for an audio drama.
Yeah, for an audio drama, definite 4 out of 5.
Yeah, I would say yeah, but 3 for Deus and Carmine, and probably maybe slightly generous 4 for Deus Sanguinius as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Black Rage is a tricky one. It does come up in many different ways, because it's very controlled in Deus and Carmine. We see Chorus fall to it. Very unconventional means that he falls to it, but he falls to it in ways that we know, seeing himself as Sanguinius, seeing his brothers, seeing Horus.
Mm-hmm.
There's also that weird psychobomb in Deus and Carmine, which is again one of the interesting points, which induces the Black Rage and Red Thirst again.
Yeah, that part was very devious. That struck me as a very chaos word bearer thing to do, the Psyker Bomb, and how it sacrificed meaningless mortals to do it. That worked very well in my opinion.
Yes, one of the Deus and Carmine got some great concepts, but some failed sort of delivery.
Yeah,
Which Deus and Carmine really steps up, and I think I feel like we've kind of torn the Blood Angels and James Swallow a bit of a new one. But when we do our next episode, looking at Red Fury and Black Tide, we've got a lot more nicer things to say.
yeah.
And we had some nice things to say about Heart of Rage, to be fair.
Mm.
All right, so is that cool?
Yeah, I just would like to say that. So next month we're going to be looking at the next 2 books, Red Tide and Black Fury, and the month after that we're going to be Path of the Warrior, getting our Eldar on. And then on to Imperial Guard, and then maybe taking some requests after that, but we'll see.
And just for the record, everyone can get everything you're talking about in this right here.
So everything from this episode and from the next episode are in the omnibooks. We've basically covered the first omnibus this episode, and the next omnibook is for the next episode. Yep. And there's even Heart of Rage printed in there, which is nice.
Is there? That was actually one of the questions I had, but that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is pretty. They keep. It says in the intro that they're a bit different. There's a few extra scenes. I read it and listened to it. There's not that much difference, to be honest. There might be a couple of paragraphs, but the story is essentially the same.
All right. Well, if that's all good and done, I'd like to make one more announcement. Just for you who are aware, we run everything on donations on the bottom of our Tumblr page. We have a donate button that goes to a PayPal. If you can donate, $1, $2, $5, anything that can help. We will keep doing the shows for free every week, but a lot of us put some time and money into this, and it would be greatly appreciated for any help that we could get. And then I feel like there was another announcement because we did the giveaway. I sent that person a message already.
Awesome.
What else? Yeah, so we're going to be doing this every month. Is that
Every
the
month. Yeah.
Yep.
Third Wednesday of each month.
third Wednesday of each month? Okay, and there's possibility of being a fluff show filler.
Hmm.
All right, we'll talk after this, Seb
Yeah.
or and Brett. But yeah, we seem to have a pretty active chat room. If you guys just want to hang around for a bit and talk to chat room,
Hmm.
I'll have to cut the stream.
Totally.
So
Thank you very much for joining us for this first
yes,
show. And thank you so much, folks, for giving us this
Thank you
opportunity.
all.
yeah, not a problem. It was fun. It's always fun to do shows. So yeah, we'll be right back.